This is part 2 of my princess sock doll. I have part 1 linked in the video description below. So this video is going to show how to make all the details to make our princess sock doll all come together. Before we stuff the doll, I put on the eyes. I'm using safety eyes. You could also crochet or use lace thread to make the eyes as well. And these eyes are linked in my Amazon storefront if you want to take a look at them. Once you get those on, we are going to stuff the doll, and I use a polyfill. Next, I take the tail end of the working yarn of my shoes that I made, and we are going to weave in and out around the bottom of the shoes, and this is to create that drawstring effect so we can close up the end and so none of that polyfill comes out. Once we close that up, we just knot it a few times, and then we're going to use the extra string that we have, and we are going to sew up the middle to create the definition for her shoes. And this you just do a few times, going back up and down and pulling tight, and you'll see it starts to create that line for her shoes. Next, we're going to make little straps for her use, also using this yarn. So once I work it back up and I have it secured, then we're going to take it, put it back on to our needle, and then to make the straps, I start on the side of her leg and I make it go up a little bit from the shoe, and then on the side of her leg, and then it goes down to the middle of the shoe and then back up to where the legs come together. And so you're making like a zigzag effect all the way around to make these little straps. So it's up and down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And this is just making some little straps. You don't have to do this part, but it just gives a little bit of detail for it being some strappy shoes. So once the straps to her shoes are done, you're just going to knot them into place, knot the yarn together. And that was down at the end, so I just knot the two tail ends together. I put it on my needle, and then I hide the threads in between the two layers, and then I cut off any excess. Next, we're going to make the definition for her legs. So you use the same color that you used for the legs, and I pull it through to one side starting down at her shoes, and I do leave a little bit of a tail at the one end because we're going to use that to secure it all together. But with the other end that has the needle, we just sew up in a straight line up to her torso and then back down. And I do this a few times, and as you pull, you will start to see the definition of her legs. I end back down at her shoes on the same side where the tail end of the yarn is, and then we just knot it together, and then again you can hide it in between the two layers as well. Next, I put on her little skirt just to see where I want to make her waist definition. And I just kind of eyeball it to see what looks good proportion-wise. And then once I have that, we take the torso yarn. This was the pixie yarn from Premier, so it is really easy to break. I can actually pull it apart with a little bit of force using my hands. So I did double it up so we would have enough to be able to cinch it and not break the yarn. So just kind of be careful of that. And you just do the drawstring effect again, weaving it in and out. And then I kind of give it a nice little tight pull, and then I knot it together. And then once it's knotted together, again, you can hide the two pieces yarn in between the two layers and cut off excess. So I went a little bit higher just because with the skirt length, it's what I eyeballed, what seemed to look proportion for her. So I get her skirt and I just tied off the ends of the working around that one. And you can see then that's where her skirt will sit. Now, what really makes her come together is we want to make her neck definition. And this is the same way you weave the needle in and out with the skin color. And this makes the drawstring effect as well. And I always like to tie it in the back. And so weave it in and out and then tie it tight. And then I loop it around a few times around her neck, and I tie it in a knot a few times to get a really good clean line and good neck definition for her. Next, we will also do her hair, which is once again the same thing. The sock dolls are really easy to do. We're just going to make the drawstring effect, weaving the yarn in and out. I'm using the yellow yarn, just the tail ends that were left when we cinched up the top of her head. And as I come back around, I put the two ends below, and then I cinch it together to make her bun. And I do the same thing like I did her neck. I actually wrap it, I knot it, and then I wrap it around a few times, pull it tight, knot it again, just to give her really nice definition. And then once that's knotted and secured into place the way I like it, hide the ends in between the 2 layers and cut them off any excess that you might have. Now we're going to make the definition for her arms. And so I use the same color yarn as her torso, and we're going to do the same thing like we did with her legs and with her shoes. We pull some yarn through at the bottom. I start down pretty much where that her waist is, and I doubled up the yarn on this part so through the needle, just so it wasn't as hard to break, because this one is a little bit thinner yarn. It's easy to break. And then we just kind of go right up to where you'd make like her where you would want her arm to stop, to make like where her armpit would be, right? And then I had enough yarn, I just pull it through to the other side, and then I make her other arm definition with that same yarn, which makes it nice. Once I get the definition I like, and you kind of keep pulling that yarn to make that line, I do it up and down a few times, then I secure it in place, I knot it, and then you hide the yarn inside the 2 layers, and you're all done. So it's really easy to make the arm definition this way, and you just kind of eyeball it where you want it to start. I like to start it at the waist, and then just how far you want to go up to create like a shoulder. And then you can always add in some more yarn if you think the definition needs to be a little bit more. You can always do another line and continue to pull it tight, and it'll make a more definition of the line. You just want to make sure you have some polyfill in between where you're putting her arm and her torso, so you get the bump and you get the line. So that's why it's good to kind of overstuff her a little bit, so you have enough polyfill to work with. Now to do some finishing touches, we have her necklace. I have the black sparkle yarn from Big Twist Value brand. This works really good. I just had some extra that I cut off, and you just kind of do the same thing that you did for her neck. I just kind of wrapped it around a few times so we can see that yarn, knotted it in place, and then hid the tail ends in between the 2 layers. And then for her headband that she has, we're just going to use some of her torso and skirt yarn and do the same thing. Wrap it around a few times, knot it into place on the back side, and then hide the tail ends inside in between the 2 layers. And at this point, you can do that with any of the tail ends that you have left out. Just make sure they're knotted together so they are secured, and then pull them through and cut off any excess. Lastly, I had some pink yarn. I did the Big Twist Value brand in pink to make her lips, and I did double it up, and I started from the back and I pulled it through to the front, and then pulled it over to make her smile, and then pulled it back through the back again. And then I kind of used a crochet hook and my needle to kind of get the lips the way I want it. The lips are optional, but I just thought they made it kind of cute. Once I got them to how I thought they looked the best on her, then I knotted all 4 of the working ends yarns together in the back. And then I hid them in between the 2 layers as well, cutting off any excess. And now our doll is complete. So I hope you enjoyed making our princess sock doll, our little Cinderella here, as much as I did. I have been asked to make some other princess dolls, so if you'd like to see one, let me know in the comments. My next one's going to be Belle. So don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more updates and free tutorials, and happy crafting.